The Titans take out one of the supernatural bad guys, Connor gets out of jail, and Mother Mayhem takes on the Titans. Hello, entertainment enthusiasts. This is Ray, and this is the Fandom Realm. And today, I'm going to be reviewing episode 2 of season 4 of Titans. Before we get started, just remember this is a spoiler review, so just be aware. And also, do me a big favor and go through and hit that subscribe button for me. I really would appreciate it. Now, we're going to see that this episode starts out with a scene in a house with a family, and the family is going to have some spooky things starting to go on. Basically, the blood is covering the house, and it ends up, we're going to just call the person the spook for now, is going to end up in the house, and he is going to, it looks like, freeze the father, and then the mother's having some issues, and there's a girl as well, and the spook ends up in the room with the girl, and then we're going to cut. The next scene, basically, we are going to see the Titans are on the road in their RV, and Tim Drake is going to be watching the TV, and it's talking about having arrested Connor for Lex Luthor's murder. And they're actually going to have a journalist on the TV that actually wonders, can he get a fair trial? Moving on from that, we're going to basically see that they're going to turn around. They're going to go back to Metropolis, and Dick and Cory are going to go in to see Connor. They're all going to talk, and Dick and Cory are basically going to go out to investigate after they talk to Connor, which I thought it was very interesting that they had him in a kryptonite jail, but he could still hear what was going on. The other thing, Dick and Cory actually split up. We are actually going to see Tim go with Gar, and they're actually going in and doing some training in a forest. While they are actually training, you're going to see that Gar is apparently having some voices in his head that are going to cause him some issues. And Gar is going to hold his head, and he starts to turn like he's going to turn into a beast, and then he passes out. And then we're going to flash back to Cory, and she is meeting with a person from LexCorp, and he's going to reveal that there was actually a horrible situation in that all the board members of LexCorp actually died in the same way that Lex did, throwing up blood and choking to death, and having what happened to Lex happen to them. And then we see that source that Cory is talking to basically die this horrible death, and he has the same thing happen to him that Lex did. That snake-like creature comes out of him, and Cory is going to blast that snake with fire. We're going to next skip on to the next scene, which is going to be Rachel trying to, I guess, trace the source of the magic, and it's going to basically lead her in her vision to that house where those family members were killed earlier in the episode. So they're going to get in touch with Gar and Tim and get them to come meet them at that house. So the group gets all back together at the house, and they go inside, and they're going to discover the dead mother. They're also going to find the daughter seemingly in a catatonic type state, and Rachel's actually going to go over and make contact with her and use her powers to sort of see what's, I guess, in the girl's head. And she's going to see sort of what's going on, and she's going to see that spook, the bad guy in the, I keep wanting to say it's a Raven's mask, but the creep in the Raven's mask, that creep is going to attack, and Rachel is going to protect the girl. She grabs her, she uses her power to get her out of the dream state or catatonic state, whatever she was in at the time. The next scene moves us back to Connor's cell, and he's talking to Cory, and he tells Cory that Lex, she had some part to play in all this. What was happening was partially because of her. And then Cory's not going to really like that idea. She tells Connor to take his Luthor hat off, and there's a brief Connor says about knowing what people on the outside think about him, and Cory is going to respond to him that he doesn't owe them anything. And then she's going to have to leave because visiting time is over. Now we move on to the next scene, which is going to feature Sebastian Singer. We'll be calling him later on Brother Blood, who is addressing a board in a business. I never caught whether or not this was maybe a group at LexCorp or what other business this was. If you know, please post in the comments below. But he's addressing them, talking about basically this game that he has and how they should invest in it to put it out there. And they really just sort of turn off to him. They are not receptive about what he wants to do, not at all. They sort of make fun of him, and you also have a situation with what was going on. He's going to start to hallucinate seeing the red blood flow down over these business people, and so he actually starts hallucinating, and when that happens, he decides he's getting out of there, and so he leaves, and then the members of the business, they laugh it off, and then we move on. Now, the Titans are going to move on to a warehouse. They've identified it as the area that the spook, the bad guy, is at. And once they get there, they're going to be in a situation where they walk in and they are stunned because there are people hanging there. They're basically being bled into canisters, and it's really a rough situation. But as they explore around, Rachel's going to come in contact with the spook, and she's going to use her spooky supernatural power in order to basically kill, or at least to capture, the spook. The spook's going to burst into flames, and Rachel tells us that it was not her power that did that. And so with that, basically the spook did it to himself, or he had something set up to happen if he were caught. Not really sure where that was going. Now, we do get to see a scene here where Sebastian Singer has returned to the hospital where his mother was being cared for. He finds out she has passed away. We do get a cut shot showing, it looks like May Bennett. We assume she had something to do possibly with his mother's death. And then Dick is leaving the girl from earlier behind. They say something about magic and good magic, and Dick leaves. We flash back, we go to our next scene, which since the Titans found what they did and found these people hanging up there, they actually were able to use that evidence to help get Connor out of jail. And we flash to a scene of the Titans getting ready to leave. Connor actually says he doesn't want to ever see Metropolis again, and so they're going to be heading back out of town. Meanwhile, they also found out who the actual killer was. They identified him when Rachel killed him, was responsible for his death earlier. So, as the Titans hop back in their RV and head out of Metropolis, well, they're not going to get very far. Rachel's going to feel the presence of someone. They're all going to be looking out the windows, and prophetically, Cory says that that person must be a bad guy, and they're going to come up against Mother Mayhem. So the Titans are going to step out of the RV in full Titan regalia, and they're going to come up against Mother Mayhem. It starts out with Connor, who is pretty ineffective. She actually blasts him off, and his Superman logo is glowing in his chest. We're going to have Tim. We're going to have go against her. He gets ousted. You know, the whole gang is going to get ousted against Mother Mayhem, except for Cory. Cory's going to be powerful enough. She causes an explosion, and Mother Mayhem disappears. Now, they're going to go and check on team members. All the team members are there and accounted for and up walking around, except for one, and that is Rachel. And when they show Rachel, her hair has become white, and she has lost the gem that is in her forehead. And so it appeared that when she was fighting Mother Mayhem, that maybe Mother Mayhem was pulling some of her powers away from Rachel. And so we'll just have to see how that ends up. The episode ends as Mother Mayhem apparently returns to at that Temple of Azeroth that we saw earlier when Lex was at it firing May Bennett. There's going to be followers there. They're all chanting. She brings back, I guess she's going to return there. And while they're focused on her, we're also going to jump to Sebastian Singer. He's having coffee. It looks like just in a house or maybe a diner or something like that. And he's going to obviously be hearing those chants that we just heard with Mother Mayhem at the Temple of Azeroth. And with that, his coffee starts becoming blood and basically boils out onto the surface. And with that, the episode draws to an end. Now, just some thoughts and reactions before I move on to giving this episode a grade. And probably one of the things that stands out for me is the difference between this show when you have the Titans separated into several groups and when you have them all together. They make a very good cast, I believe. They make a very good group of heroes when they're all together. But they do seem to lose a little something when it comes to splitting them up. So I really want to see them all together more. I was very glad we went ahead and very early on solved the issue with Connor and the death of Lex Luthor. I'm very happy that we got that behind us. I've got to say, I find it interesting. Now they've tried to leave Metropolis several times. They keep getting pulled back every time they do. And so that's a little funny for me. One really big thing here is the power of Mother Mayhem. She seems to be very superpowered when it comes to looking at the rest of the Titans. Really, Cory was the only one that stood any chance against her. The rest, she just blew through them. And this is the one thing that concerns me when we do talk about having these supernatural type powers, even in your superhero shows. The problem is, how do your normal superheroes actually go up against that? The only way you can fight Mother Mayhem, if you're the Titans, is with potentially Rachel's power or Cory's power. And it has to be something that is similar in supernatural powers. And that's why I've always not been the biggest fan of situations using these spooky supernatural type powers. And last thing, and it's still positive, and that is I really am enjoying the sort of horror aspect of Titans so far. It's a little different than all the other 3 seasons for the most part, and so I like where they're going with it, and it is just to the level where it's not too much. You know, it's got some blood, it's got some gore, but you're not seeing body parts flying everywhere, and I think that's a good thing. I also thought the pacing of the episode was pretty good. Both of the first 2 episodes, I think the pacing has been much better than the pacing in the first 3 seasons. And so I'm really happy to see that. And it looks like this storyline has been thought out a little bit better as well. So we'll see what happens. But so far, I'm happy with the way the story is being built. Now, the other negative that I would take out of this, besides Mother Mayhem being a little overpowered, and just the whole idea of the supernatural being a little overpowered, and, you know, that's not really a negative for me, something that would make me decrease a score, but it's just something that it's always just bothered me a little bit. The other negative for me is, and it's not a huge negative, is I wish everything was shown in a little bit different color. Everything's so dark. All the fights are in an area that's dark. It's at night. It's in a warehouse and there are no lights on. I know that's something that is probably realistic, but it's one of those things that I just wish there was some light so we could see what was going on better. That is one of the small negatives I would have. With that, I'm going to talk about a grade right now, and the grade I'm going to give episode 2 is a B. I thought it was a solid episode. I think both the first and second episodes have been much better than most of the episodes from the first 2 seasons. With that, thanks for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave some comments below so we can have some discussion. And with that, I will see you next time on the Fandom Realm.